Hazrat Muhammad At-Taki alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And Kushali Mubarak to you all as well. A short announcement for tomorrow. The program for the Wiladat of Imam Ali alayhi salam will start at 6 p.m. with Qasidas, followed by a lecture from Shaikh Viney Khetia and Niyaz. Without further delay, I would like to ask Shaikh to come forward and recite this. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المبارك الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبه نستعين والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وهو رحمة الله للعالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الميامين المهديين المقتولين ولعنة الله دائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقال الله سبحانه في كتابه المجيد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤتى الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا وما يتذكر إلا أولو الألباب. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. وصلوا على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. Extend my congratulations to you all on the birth of our holy ninth Imam, Imam al-Jawad Salamullahi alayhi, for whose, alhamdulillah, I just returned from his holy dome in Kadhimiya just a few days ago. And what an experience it was standing in front of those two domes, you know, and just staring and thinking about everything that these Imams have gone through, everything that they have taught, everything that they have transmitted to us. It's such an experience for anyone who has gone for the ziyarah, so especially Kadhimiya, you know, and thinking that the Imam gave us so much knowledge, he taught us so many things, but rather it's not in the past tense, it's in the present tense, because he continues to teach us. Because for whoever goes to visit him, he teaches them something. But he continues to impart knowledge to everyone who comes to see him. So today I want to begin with a very beautiful hadith of our ninth Imam about seeking knowledge. And I want to discuss it within a contemporary framework. The Imam says, Salamullahi alayhi, he says, "Alaykum bi talab al-ilm, fa inna talabuhu farida." That upon you, or wajib upon you, or incumbent upon you, is to seek knowledge. Because seeking it is a farida, meaning it's a wajib act, it's necessary, it's a darura. وَالْبَحَثَ عَنْهُ نَافِلًا. You know, and researching it and excavating it and, you know, and going deeper into it is like an addition to it. It's like, it adds something to that knowledge. وَهُوَ سِلَّ بَيْنَ الْإِخْوَانِ. And it is what brings us together as brothers. Knowledge. The knowledge is the basis of our relationship to one another. This is very important because we have to think to ourselves, when I go to gatherings and I sit with people and we eat and we talk and this and that, what is the basis of my relationship with that person? Is ilm the silla that connects us? Or is it something else? Is it based on knowledge? Meaning everything that we do has to be based on knowledge. Everything, including our friendships. وَدَلِيلٌ عَلَى الْمُرُوَّةِ. This is so beautiful. That chivalry, honor, manliness. Chivalry, really, is muruwa. Chivalry, right? That sense of honor, that sense of carrying yourself with comportment. What is the evidence of this? Is knowledge. It doesn't matter how strong we are, how rich we are, how good looking we are. If we don't have knowledge, we don't have muruwa. Muruwa and ilm come together here. Knowledge. Meaning everything that we do has to be based on ilm. It's a very profound, very beautiful hadith. وَتُحْفَةٌ فِي الْمَجَالِسِ. And it is the centerpiece of our gatherings. Again, coming back to gatherings, coming back to friends. There's nothing aimless going on here. That everything, when there's ilm and knowledge, there's purpose. When there is no knowledge, there is no purpose. Thus, there is no thawab in that gathering then. There's no reward. Now, either you'll end up at 0 or you'll go to negative and may become haram. Hopefully only at 0, not negative. But at the very least, it's 0. And that's why, I don't know about other people, but I tend to get bored very easily. Bored in the sense of just random talk. About what? I don't know, maybe it's just me. You know, the other day my dad was telling me, why don't you go to your cousin's house? You never go see them. Was it because they're not Muslim? I said, no, it's got nothing to do with that. The conversation is so useless. I find my IQ is depleted. All they talk about is soccer, and maybe basketball. There's no ilm. I don't feel like I've gained anything out of that conversation. And these are 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. I mean, these are people, they're not kids, right? But it just shows that the state of society is so poor that 40-year-olds have never grown up past 15. And the state of their conversations are so useless. And then talking about the olden days and, oh, remember when you did this, and remember when you did that, and remember when this, and remember this. But who cares? What's that going to do for me? There's no ilm. No knowledge. There's nothing to gain from it. So thus, that gathering has no benefit to the mu'min. This is what Imam al-Jawad is telling us. There is no honor in that gathering. There's no honor in that majlis, in that sitting or that gathering or that get-together. Without the mention of Allah and the Anbiya and the Ahlul Bayt, there is no mention. Not a majlis, but at least something that will bring us closer to understanding our purpose as Muslims in society. Yet I find, very unfortunately, in our communities, and this, you know, people often ask, Shaikh, now why don't you come to my house for dinner? Why don't you come over here? You never come and hang out with the youth. I said, with all due respect, I have nothing wrong with hanging out with the youth, but again, my intelligence is depleted. Because your conversations revolve around video games. By youth, I mean like 21, 22-year-olds, not 15. No, unfortunately, the youth is, that title is going lower and lower. I'm not talking about young children. I'm talking about 21-year-old university students whose lives are meaningless and useless, and there's no ilm. And they sit in their dorm room or apartment or their mother's basement playing video games. Some of them married. Seriously. The kids are asleep and they go on this FIFA. I don't even play these things. I don't even know what they are. And they apparently can connect to other people and play with other people online or something like this. There's so much you could do. Read a book. Watch a documentary even, if reading's not your thing. Or watch a nice show that has a good meaning to it. There are some. Something that at least will stimulate you. What's going on with the world? And then they always ask me, Shaikh, you don't come to these barbecues. I said, because I feel out of place. Not because I'm a Shaikh, but because maybe I'm so addicted to just wanting to learn, I want to get something from it. At least get something out of that. Even talk about the world, talk about the society, what's going on, things that we can do. Some kind of fruitful conversation. But yet I find again and again and again, in my experience, unfortunately, is that that's not the case. That knowledge is not the centerpiece of our gatherings. وَالصَّاحِبْ فِي السَّفْرِ, leave aside a companion during travel. And your close one, فِي الْغُرْبَةِ, أُنس, فِي الْغُرْبَةِ. It's that knowledge that keeps you company, that gives you a sense of belonging, that gives you a sense of purpose when you're alone, when you're by yourself. That knowledge of revelation, that knowledge of the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt, or philosophy of Ahlul Bayt, the kalam of Ahlul Bayt. But then again, we're so scared to be alone. Because our minds, many of us, are so empty. So thus we can't stay for a moment alone. And then if we are alone, then we want to do something that will fill our time, and then it fills our time in something that has nothing to do with knowledge. So this hadith of the Imam teaches us a lot. There's a lot that we can learn from Imam al-Jawad here. And then another question now comes. Why do we seek knowledge? Why go to school? Why even go to elementary school? I would ask the question. Why go to high school? Why go to college? Why go to university? For what purpose do we educate ourselves? What we're told is to make lots of money, no? Is that really what Imam al-Jawad meant? That in seeking knowledge is obligatory upon you because you have to make a lot of money? Well, believe you me, I know a lot of people, alhamdulillah, I've had opportunity to meet thousands of people in my travels, and they have a lot of money and they've sought a lot of knowledge, but yet their conversations have no ilm. It's just useless banter, garbage, essentially. Garbage in, garbage out, right? This is a mixture of ghiba, a mixture of ima, a mixture of rumors, a mixture of this and that, and then olden days and olden times and sins of the past. Remember when we did this to this person and this to that person, right? The olden days. What does the olden days get you? Well, how does that further anyone? Or it's about how to make more money. There's no purpose in it. So all that education, that pharmacy degree, that medical degree, I would ask these brothers, honestly, or sisters, that engineering degree, or that political science degree, whatever it is. Why did you go to school in the first place? Because if it's to make money, you don't have to go to school to make money. Bill Gates checked out early. He realized, I didn't have to go to school to make money. Zuckerberg realized he didn't have to go to school to make money. Elon Musk realized that if you listen to his most recent talks, that school is useless if you want to make money. Learn programming, learn statistics. Money is in statistics. They don't even teach statistics in high school. At least in most of the high schools, and if they do, they teach you a little bit. All these billionaires that made so much money. So why did they go to school? They realized if I want to make money, I'm checking out of Harvard. Steve Jobs, same thing. Wasn't very educated in formal education terms at all. Larry Ellison, the same thing. Huh? And these are supposed to be the people who are the movers and the shakers of the world, right? The idols of the world, right? The one who tell us 50 years from now what the world will look like. Let's go to the Tuskegee study in 1947. The best and the brightest doctors in the United States got together starting in the 20s. They had a problem known as syphilis. Syphilis is a disease. So imagine, you are working for the Ministry of Public Health, Department of Public Health in America. You have an MD, you have been to university. These are some of the most educated and brightest people in America. They injected 201 African Americans with syphilis in order to test out how the disease works. Did they go to Harvard? Some of them, yes. What was their education for? Those years of medical research, of PhDs, of MDs, of postdocs. Pen. I have a pen back there. You know, the pen hanging here and the big glasses. So that they could inject 201 African Americans with syphilis and use them as guinea pigs. Go to the Center for Disease Control. It talks about the Tuskegee Project, 47. And you know what? They didn't even know. The American government had to pay out $10 million in 1973 when this went to court. But the question that I would ask, now no one could claim that these doctors were not among the most learned in America. I mean, these guys knew exactly what these were the best and the brightest that got together. But yet the best and the brightest, that education that they sought, led them to think that it's okay to use 201 African American men as guinea pigs who would later suffer and die of this disease, or at least suffer from its complications for the rest of their life. Not even knowing what they're being injected with, being told it's some kind of medical research trial. Go look it up in the Center for Disease Control in the United States. But the question that I'm asking here, they went to university. They probably went to university that some of you people, that some of the brothers in this room wish their kids would go to, right? Going to fight to get the top SAT score so our kid could get into the top school. But for what? For whom? To what end? So that they could either become killers or thieves? So that they could bring the economy to collapse in 2008? So that they could learn to steal from this person and that person by developing predatory mortgage rules and subprime mortgages? These were the best and the brightest. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Lehman Brothers. Not the best and the brightest statisticians in the world? Yes. Mathematicians, best and the brightest in the world. Economists, best and brightest in the world. Isn't it? Cream of the crop. We all wish our kids could be in that league, right? We desire them to be there so we could maybe tell our friends that my kid goes to Harvard. Done an MBA at Harvard, an MBA at Yale, Princeton, Brown. Forget about Western. All this Canada is meaningless in the grand scheme of the world, obviously. The world's not run out of Western and U of T. It's run out of Harvard and Columbia and Yale, Stanford, and Rice, University of Chicago, places like that. Friedman at Chicago, right? The invisible hand. What does that even mean? The market will work itself out. What do any of these things even mean? What do we want our kids to aspire to? I'm not saying education is not worth it. I'm saying, why are they being educated to begin with? Are they aware? Is there a purpose behind going to school? Behind learning algebra, geometry, physics, English, social studies? Do we even have a philosophy of education? Islam certainly does. We'll get to that in a moment. But how many of us, whether we send our kids to a public school or an Islamic school, are even aware of what the Islamic Ahlul Bayt-centered philosophy of education is? How many of us have ever even bothered to ask ourselves that question? And then we wonder why people can go to school and then come up with new ways to abort fetuses. How does that become possible? New ways to collect people's private data. How does that become possible? Do we really think the likes of Zuckerberg are in it to improve humanity? Seriously? None of these guys were. All of this is an afterthought. It's called money. And lots of it. And a big fat IPO is what it's called. Yet we sit here, sometimes so deluded, drinking our own Kool-Aid to somehow think that these people are, developing things for the betterment of humanity and the world, and now obviously this all has come out and there's a whole mess now going on in the States and Europe about this issue of data and privacy and so on and so forth. But my point is that Zuckerberg, I'm just using him as an example because the kids tend to love him so much, right? Mark Zuckerberg this, Zuckerberg that. He dropped out of Harvard, right? Went and formed his own company. And he made billions, billions of dollars. Good for him. Fine. But I would ask again, what is the philosophy of that? What is the purpose of that? In Islam, everything that we learn is connected to our Creator. In Islam, language is a reflection of the bayan that Allah has put within us. Language is sacred. Numbers reflect the mystery that is God. And language reflects the medium by which God speaks to us. That's language. And the power of language and the power of numbers. That's how Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam has taught us about numbers. We think the Imams were not scientists, they were not having classes in the sciences and the chemistries and physics. Of course they were. What, we think Islam is only about hadith? Oh. These were towering figures who could see the one in the midst of the many. That in the midst of the many, of the millions of different particles, and atomic structures, they see the one that unites them all. Now think of that philosophy of education. I'm just touching on it. I mean, this is just a little sprinkle here, okay? It's a much deeper subject, based on teachings of Ahlul Bayt, versus going to school so that I could go to McMaster, to the DeGraut Business School, and that's so I could get a degree, so I could become a chartered accountant, and I could become a partner in my firm and make lots of money. Or I could go to school, do a political science degree, become a lawyer, and make lots of money. Why are people so dissatisfied with education? Why, when you look at the faces of children going to school, that they're just like this? Because they don't know why they're there. They don't know why they're studying. They don't know why they have to study geometry, math, science, religion. They don't see how it all fits together. Why? Because we ourselves are so ignorant that we've never even taught our own children this. And then what are our communities based upon? What's the foundation of our community then? What's the philosophy of the community, of the Jamaat, of all these organizations that we build, whether it be in Africa or India, Europe, London or Toronto? What is its foundation? or Iraq, wherever it is, whatever part of the world. The truth is, in many cases, my dear brothers and sisters, we ourselves don't know. And then we create monsters. We create monsters who go to school without understanding why they've gone to school. So thus what they learn is merely functional. It's an ends to a means, or a means to an end. That's all it is. And thus education in itself has no value. So thus when you want to have a gathering aside from playing video games, you're told that it's not fun. Because we are so deluded, we are so illiterate, and we are so impoverished and controlled by the people who are smarter than us to know that we could remain as merely memes and slaves as long as we're chained to that video game, or chained to this, or chained to team sports. I mean, imagine someone comes on the 8th night of Muharram, and half his time is on his phone checking sports scores, because apparently there's a playoff match or something going on at the same time. And it becomes a big deal. They tell the Maulana, actually. In Fatima, I was once told you have to wrap up early because there's a hockey game tonight. Vancouver Canucks are playing or something, or Leafs, or I don't know. I don't even watch team sports. I think the whole thing's a bunch of nonsense. For the most part. Funded by alcoholic companies and whatnot, in order to do what? So that you could swing a t-shirt around and sit and throw things on an ice? I'm not against sports. But I'm saying when it goes too far, we have the alim being told to wrap up early because there's a playoff game tonight. Like, seriously? And then we wonder why our kids don't want to learn anything. Or why we have to drag them to learn about religion or this or that. Or why it's like pulling teeth. It's like pulling teeth because we ourselves never understood. And we blame them? No! How can we blame them? We are to blame. We are the root of the problem. We are the root. We are the asal of it. We came as economic migrants, many of us. And now it's too late, fine. But along the way, we forgot the purpose of our education. Whatever it is, whether we study numbers, whether we study sciences, whether we study liberal arts. You know the meaning of the word education? It's quite amazing. It's from the word educare, which means to draw out and make someone remember what they already know. Do you know why it means that? Because the purpose of the word educare in Latin is for the person to rediscover the truth that they already know. That's the actual Latin meaning of the word education, from the word educare. Alastu bi rabbikum qalu bala. When Allah says in the Quran, am I not your Lord? And they said yes. And the Quran is a reminder to us of that pact that we made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why it's a dhikr lil alamin. It's a reminder. Education is about reminding us of what we already are, which are creatures of God, who are seeking Him out in the midst of this wilderness known as His creation. Education is about seeking truth, about becoming enlightened through the seeking of truth, of haqq, whether it be through math, science, through language arts, through biology, whatever it is. It is about seeking truth. And there's no difference between Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, or Hinduism. All the major world religions tell us that this is what the meaning of education is. It's not functional. Because if we want it to be functional, there's many other ways to make money. And there's nothing wrong in making money. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, what is the purpose of education? Education and making money, they could go hand in hand together, but they do not go hand in hand together always. I'm not talking about formal education here. I'm talking about just being educated. I'm not talking about having formal degrees. You're being educated for yourself. So do we send our children to pursue truth, or do we send our children to pursue money? We have to be very honest with ourselves. And from what I have seen, in my experience as an educator, as someone who works within the context of education for the last, over a decade, is that the majority of us send them out to seek their happiness and eventually to make money. Now, what our religion tells us is that the sign of Akhir Zaman, according to the Prophet, is when we will seek education for other than God. That we shall know that we have now become among the satanic group. You know that? This is a part of Akhir Zaman, a part of the people who will be destroyed by the Imam. Who are a part of that institution, those institutions of power and despotism. So we have to ask, which institution are we building? Are we building institutions of self-serving despotism and cynicism, narcissism, avarice, which is one of the deadly sins, right? Which is seeking wealth for the sake of wealth in itself. Or are we seeking truth? Are we seeking a life to become a better human being, a full, complete human being? To become insan, not bashar. Anyone can be bashar. Bashar is that which stands up on two legs. Insan is something else. Insaniya and bashariya are two different things. Many people stand up on their two legs. Right? Animals can learn to stand up on their two legs, right? Bears and so on and so forth. Are we bashar or are we insan? If we're bashar, then we just go to do things just to seek money. Everything is functional. It's servile. I could get we could get a beautiful wife and a beautiful house, and we could say that we did it. That's bashar. That individual is no different than the grizzly bear or the monkey. Because they're bashar. Yeah. Have skin. Right? Bashar is the one who has skin. Or insan. Something else. That's something to aspire to become insan. Ahlul Bayt have given it to us. Imam al-Jawad has told us what is knowledge, what is the importance of knowledge. So the problem that comes about here, and it's a very deep problem. Before I go into that, let us salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That our conception of education has become desacralized. The sacred element of education has been removed. And it's removed by something known as Protestantism. Protestantism and the Protestant movement resulted in this whole notion of the priesthood of every believer. That there is no hierarchy, that I create things for myself, that every mu'min, so to speak, is a priest. Take the reins of religion for yourself. And what happened with the combination of Protestantism and the rise of industrialism and the Enlightenment in Europe, when these two came together, it resulted in the idea that education need not be about seeking something beyond material means. This is very important to understand. So the educational system was built over the past 300 to 400 years on this premise. From Europe, it came to America. From America, this educational system came to Canada. And we, although in modern times, we are no longer colonized, whether we be in India or Africa or whatever, there's very few colonies left in the world. But our minds continue to be colonized. That the shackles may have been broken, the proverbial shackles may have been broken from our arms, our hands, but they continue to colonize our minds. Do you know how? By us using terminologies that we don't understand and assuming that we understand them, like the word education. Like the word education itself. That we end up becoming colonized through our language. Because we use words in certain ways, we use certain expressions, we live a certain life that we think is normal. Not realizing that it's not normal at all. It's the furthest thing from normal. But we've been led to think that it's normal. And it is so normal that to question it, people will think that you live on you should go live on an island. You're crazy. You're fundamentalist. You're out of touch. Not modern. And we subliminally absorb these ideas into our mind and live them. And we're products of them. And to disconnect oneself from these set of atheistic kufr assumptions, that's what they are, complete kufr, aslan kufr, from its beginning to its end, it's complete kufr. It's very hard. It's very, very, very hard. It requires a lot of introspection, a lot of thinking, a lot of reevaluation, and building more centers and more centers and more masjids and more Husainiyat and more madrasas is not going to solve the problem, because knowledge is about getting at the cause of a problem, not the symptom. We're in a world in which we treat symptoms and not root causes. Right? Treat the symptom. Just give them billions of dollars and through the IMF or the World Bank, and they can owe you for the rest of your life. We treated the symptom for now, but the poverty still exists. Look at how they treat malaria. Look at malaria. They give these people vaccines, but they never actually fix the water system. So these millions of people are given malaria medicine and sent back to the same swamp. That is a metaphor for our lives. It's a metaphor for life. Malaria treatment in third world countries. And we think inviting the next best speaker is going to solve an issue. Someone who can play soccer or play video games with the kids. That somehow they can relate. Why should they relate to something that is on the basis of no knowledge? I don't understand why the amama and the alim has to be dragged into this. Why can't we bring our level up? Because we have turned everything into a means and functionality. We ourselves are self-consuming, at times narcissist capitalists, to a certain extent. By we, I mean the collective ummah. We ourselves are the narcissist capitalists that we claim to condemn. It's the truth. Where is the knowledge in that? If the Imam has said that the centerpiece of any gathering is knowledge, where is the knowledge? I'm not saying playing sports is wrong. I'm not saying that these things are wrong. But they become a problem when there are sole focus. When they're our, the be-all and end-all of things. And then we wonder why our education and going to school and things is not an enjoyable experience. It's seen as a chore. I can't wait till I can finish and get a job. Aside from the few people that seek it just for its love, for the love of learning, for the love of becoming a better human being. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I mean, there's just so much deep indoctrination taking place. Look at, for example, The Simpsons. Wasn't it like the most successful cartoon that ever ran? I don't know how many, 20 years? 25 years? And it's supposed to be like they get all kinds of awards because of the ingenuity of the script and the characters. And I mean, obviously for a show to last in those many years, a single cartoon, I mean, as they say, kudos to the maker, to the writers, right? But what is the show based on again? Because I mean, the reason I say this is because let's not fool ourselves. I know I grew up on The Simpsons. And many of you, I don't know how many of you grew up here, probably grew up to a certain extent on The Simpsons too, to a certain extent. Unless your parents were wise enough to keep you away from that. My parents didn't know any. May God forgive them, bless them. They didn't know any better. On Homer was a deadbeat dad, complete loser. And there's another reason why all these shows on TV, the dads are losers. Why is that? Why? Why are all these television shows that are on now, This Family and That Modern and This Modern, all these families, that the dads are complete losers? Deadbeat fools. Do you think that is a coincidence? But does this truly represent the epoch of human civilization? Of knowledge? Human perfection? Seriously. And our kids, or maybe us, are watching this stuff 24/7. Netflix. Look at Netflix. I did a study of Netflix this year. When I looked at the shows that are on offer of their, Netflix produces in-house shows, right? Like sitcoms and things like this. I believe 99% or 100% of these shows have those kinds of characters who, have relations with the same gender. Why? You think that's a coincidence on Netflix? Yet we talk about the brilliance of Netflix and the streaming business and the billions that they've made, right? Netflix. Right? They're heralded as a brilliant company. Case study, right? Of streaming and how they're going to put cable out of business and so on and so forth. Right? For those who read Forbes and things like this. Yet, I think 10 out of the 11 when I was checking it, as far as the analysis goes of the storylines, have to do with those sorts of relationships. Is this really the height of human civilization? Of knowledge? Because these people went to great business schools, don't get me wrong. These are the best and the brightest in the world, as they say, right? When there's a problem in the economy, they go and interview these guys, right? And gals. And the East is no different than the West, because what the East has done is because the East is so poor and illiterate for the most part, aside from some countries, like Iran. But aside from that, someone who's lived in the Middle East for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I've lived in Syria, I've lived in other countries, it's no different over there. In fact, they say, with the development of broadband technology, I'm dead serious about this, eh? So remember, seeking knowledge, right? What are we seeking knowledge for? So broadband is a big development for technology and engineering. For those who are engineers, you will know the steps that it took to go from 14K modem to T3 or broadband, right? So what did countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Iraq do with broadband? Did you know that they have the largest per capita consumption of X-rated films in the world, Iraq is in there too. Statistics are there. Syria. At the top of the list is Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Oh yeah, jump on the broadband train, right? Oh, but God bless Larry Ellison and all them, right? What was the seeking knowledge for? The feats of human engineering, right? Technology and electronics and whatnot. These are questions that our Imams ask us, and we have to answer them. I don't want to continue on for too long. But if we learn something from our Imam, it is that knowledge has to be the centerpiece of our life. That our chivalry, our honor comes from knowledge, from ilm. And that's a knowledge that nourishes our soul, gives us a sense of purpose as a human being, and brings us closer to our Creator. That's what Imam al-Jawad has taught us. Now we have to take that hadith and ask ourselves about our own lives and our own families. And then decide for ourselves, where are we heading? Because we want to learn something from our Imam. Not just come to celebrate and to have mehfil. That is important. But our Imam wants us to learn more than celebrate. Celebration is in the celebration of learning. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a tawfiq to protect ourselves from this shar, from this evil, from this shaitan that creates monsters. May Allah bring us closer to the angelic realm than the realm of monsters, closer to the realm of Ahlul Bayt than their enemies. And may Allah guide us and forgive all of our brothers and sisters, inshallah, بحق هذا الإمام المعصوم محمد الجواد صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.